Welcome to Taking Care of Lady Business, where we put the business back in lady business. Hosted by Jennifer Justice, founder and CEO of the Justice Department, a management strategy and law firm that works with female and woke male entrepreneurs, executives, talent, brands, and creatives to build and maximize their wealth, focusing in the areas of tech, consumer product, finance, media, entertainment, and fashion. Jennifer interviews entrepreneurial women who have done it all, who will be sharing their secrets on all things business, especially as a woman. These highly successful women will share strategies and insights, including what not to do and what it takes to win. And now, here's your host, Jennifer Justice.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. I'm Jennifer Justice. Today, we have a very special episode. We have Michelle Cordeiro Grant. She is the founder of Leisurée. Some of you might be wearing her bras right now because I know I am. And definitely bought them during the pandemic so I wouldn't have all that underwear. And she is a serial entrepreneur. She has many things coming down the pipeline as well, and including a podcast. And I'm going to let her talk a little bit more about that. But first, I want to say hi, welcome. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
And get a little bit into your journey as a female founder in Lively and where that all started.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll just start by saying entrepreneurship was not a word in my life. I did not ever think I would be starting a company from scratch, let alone running a company. I grew up in Pennsylvania, daughter of two Indian immigrant parents, and saw very stable lifestyles, one job, one life, all's well. But once I got to New York and I fell in love with the fashion industry and things that were super tangible, having had a finance background, I felt like I arrived. Like brands, which I look back at my life, were always my way of connecting with people, being someone that was Indian in a place where no one else was Indian. Brands were my way of assimilating. And so when I got to New York, I started to realize the power of brand and brand equity. And so that's kind of how my journey started. I worked for big retailers like Federated, which owned and still own today, Macy's and Bloomingdale's. I worked for VF Corporation, which owned Nautica and Kipling, brands that I was working on then, and then was at Victoria's Secret for almost 5 years. And I started to see the opportunity for women to create brands, not just operate them, but own them.
Yeah. I mean, because think about it, like the people who are making our bras, had never worn one, It's the same with shoes, by the way.
Yes.
The people who are making these 4-inch heels don't have to wear them because
Correct.
If they did, they would never make them.
Correct. And by creating a brand, you have the power of messaging and human impact, right?
Yeah.
And so the owners of those brands said bras are about being provocative and sexy for men. Fact. Yeah. And they should push your boobs up as far as possible and maybe be even double the boob size that you were born with, and all these things that make sense in moments, but maybe not 8 hours a day.
Exactly. Or definitely not 20 hours a day. Yeah. Or while working out, by the way. How about that? Exactly. So you had a finance background, and I think you told me that you went to law school for 2 weeks too.
I did. So part of my, being a really good daughter, I assumed my parents did not want me to do fashion, but I said, look, I'm going to do this for 2 years in New York. And at the same time, I'll study for my LSATs and then I'll go to law school. And I did that. I had a job in New York for 2 years. I took the LSATs. I got into law school. I had a goodbye party. And after 2 weeks, I called my dad and I was like, I'm not loving it here. I want to go back to New York. And I convinced my boss in New York. I was like, if you give me a promotion, I feel like this is going to go really well. And she was like, Michelle, come back immediately. And so I did.
Amazing.
So
That's
embarrassing,
great.
but awesome.
Yeah, I love it. See, that is some serious strategy right there. That, like entrepreneurship. I mean, that's, it's like the art of negotiation. Okay. So then you went into fashion, and then what was your like aha moment to be like, I can do this and I want to start this? Because I think that is where a lot of women like go, you know what? I don't, I want to do this, but they keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. I mean, there were 10 different ideas that somebody else took of mine. And it's just like,
Yeah. I mean, there was breadcrumbs in my life. So my first job at Federated, I was sitting at a desk for the first time for 12 hours a day. And I was like, guys, we got to move our bodies. I tried to create like the under the desk stair stepper and treadmill. It was done. Then I decided, I was like, guys, it is so, there's so much scam and things happening with people scanning your license and your credit cards. We need to put foil on the inside of all of our purses. Let's create this fabric called foiled. That was done too. Then I was like, okay, I'm just going to hang out in corporate America. But I started, the aha for me was when I got married. I was at my wedding and my bosses from Victoria's Secret came, and I admired them and I loved them so much. And after my wedding, I looked at them and I was like, oh my God, I love my job so much. I'm never going to give the time towards my marriage and my family that I want to give, because this job is so demanding. And as a woman, it's like 200% times demanding. And so I knew then I needed to shake it up. I did not know I was going to start a company. I don't think for women often, as risk averse humans, we just jolt. But I realized I needed to go to the startup space and see what was happening. So I joke and I say I crossed 14th Street and I went and I worked for a startup for 3 years, and I started to build confidence around the fact that no one knew what the hell they were doing.
Yeah.
No one. You just have an idea, you see it as reality, and you start building. And so that's what I saw happening. I finally found a supplier in the bra industry who wanted to take a chance on me. And when I saw that he believed in me, I believed in myself. I wish it was the other way around. It wasn't.
Wait, say that again. What? If somebody saw, yeah.
So there was a gentleman who was my first investor, Yossi Nasser.
Okay.
He was the owner of a lingerie manufacturing company, the largest manufacturer of intimates for Walmart. He saw what was happening with Harry's, Warby Parker, Casper at the time, and said, I want to create a direct-to-consumer brand. Tried and realized creating a brand is hard. Same time, I'm looking, all right, I want to create a company. And the world's brought us together. And he was
amazing.
He's like, I'll invest in you. You create the brand. And I was like, great, you be my supply chain. And that's what we did. My 35th birthday, I walked out of Chase Bank with $1.5 million in a bank account, and employee number one, me.
Wow. And what was the vision for it then? What was that product fit that you needed?
I would say that I just saw that things needed to be different. And when I left Victoria's Secret, there was no maternity, there was no size inclusivity, but more importantly, it just wasn't a bra that I wanted to wear all day.
Yeah.
And statistically, I read a stat that 60% of the time women were wearing sports bras, they weren't working out. And that was the aha, right, I love sports bras and I love swimwear. Why can't traditional bras have those qualities?
Yeah, very true. And so Lively was born. What year was that?
That was August 3rd, 2015.
Okay, so it's only been 7 years.
Yeah, it's really fast.
Yeah. And tell me about doing that, because your background was in fashion. What were you doing in fashion? What was your actual role?
Merchandising, buying, product development. Yeah, peripheral to the designers, right next to them.
And so when you started, obviously there's many more roles that you have to do as a founder. And then, so how did you backfill those? How did you figure out what to do? Because this guy's just an investor, right? He's not at all a part of the company.
Yeah. I often tell people day one, I sat at my desk and was like, okay, we're going to start a company. I have no idea where to start. And so I made a list of all the things I didn't know how to do. And I started to find the smartest people in those areas. And I would tap them through my network on LinkedIn, show up and be like, coffee, juice, anything. And again, it's all about building confidence. It's knowing that you know who to call. You don't have to have the answers. You just need to know who to call. And then I just kept going. I mean, honestly, it's all about one foot in front of the other. You're not supposed to know what to do.
Exactly.
You're supposed to figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
The game is, do you see the world as puzzles? Awesome. Do you see the world as problems? Not an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
If you like to figure stuff out, this is for you.
Right. Yeah.
You know, that's how I started. I just started asking people a million questions, started to be like, right, this is step 2. Cool. Like Lively didn't even have a name. Like we just started, I was like, oh, I need a designer. I should probably find one of those. Let's start meeting people. And I found Sarah, my creative director, because she was friends with my friend in Brooklyn and happened to be a designer.
Right.
Like there's no playbook, people. You just surround yourself with people that believe.
Yeah. Right. And are willing to put in the work and the effort, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. People that are willing to wear 15 hats like you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. So then, if I'm doing the math correctly, based on the ages of your kids, you had a young kid at the time.
Yeah. So my daughter, Lydia, she was born in January of 2014. So a year and a half, you know, when I quit my job again. And honestly, like she's the reason I became an entrepreneur. I didn't know if I wanted to have kids. Frankly, I was terrified of having children. But when I saw that I could create a human being, one, and that human could live off my body for months, I was like, shit, like I can do a lot more.
So true. I love that. No, it's a great analogy, you know, even if you don't have kids, knowing that, you know, the body you were born in, it's like, it's like there's certain capabilities, even if you can't have kids with that body was still, you know, is amazing and special and like in so many different ways. And the fact that you can then overcome that and go and think about it in that kind of parallel and be like, I can do anything, you know?
Yeah. And then my son, Jack, 2 months after I launched Lively, I found out I was pregnant, not tired.
My son's named Jack too. Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah. I mean, I love pointing these things out because so many women are like, I don't know, I want to have kids. There's no perfect time. There's just no perfect time. We balance so many and juggle so many things at the same time that it's never going to be some kind of like, oh, okay, now this is the time I'm going to start this company, because you just got to do it. And in many ways, although entrepreneurship is crazy and all consuming, it also allows you a lot more flexibility with your family than somebody who says you have to be there at 8:30 in the morning and stay until 7:30 at night.
That's right. You can get out of that 9 to 7, whatever thing, and create your own rules. And sometimes your rules are going to be even harder than, you know, the company you came from, but you can reset them at any time. And
and you only have you to blame for that.
That's right.
All right. So it's 2015. The company is launched. You are like, okay, I think I have an idea. I don't even have a designer. You didn't even have a prototype at this point.
Nothing.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is a very unique situation. And then you had $1.5 million without this, you know, but it's still a great, like all these learning lessons about it, because it doesn't last forever. 1.5 million, you know?
No.
And you have to start making money pretty quickly. And there's eyes on you on all of those things. So what did you do? Like when, like how long before you like launch the product, et cetera?
Yeah. So 2 things to note. Of that 1.5, I used less than a third of it to launch the company. I was very mindful of the fact that this is a gift and you don't necessarily know that more money's coming later. So you need to stretch every single dollar. And so the next thing that I did was I started to build a community first. I said, this is not going to be a brand that New York City decides and then markets. This is going to be a brand where women come together and help me make the decisions. And so we would have Airbnb focus groups, wine, cheese, building brand X, come join us. And like women would come. They would help us choose the imagery, the words, the marketing. We had over 100 women that we met on Instagram, pre-Instagram stories, that were not influencers and not celebrities, but women that had like really cool feeds and content and something to say. Maybe only 500 followers, but that's fine. And so we took all of that while making product, while building a factory in Asia, and we launched on April 1st. And I like to say we didn't launch on April 1st. We actually launched in January. That's when our Instagram went up. February, we started to build.
That's when you're legitimate. Yeah.
Yeah. We started to have events before we sold a product. And by March, we had over 130,000 emails in our file.
Wow.
So hustle.
Yeah. But how are you going out to these people? How are you getting that? Like, were you buying Facebook ads, or are you buying any of that stuff? You're just
no. So what we do is, I tell people this all the time, and this will like bridge into my next chapter, but it's all about human connection. Brands are about humans loving a brand experience and telling another human how great that experience was. Before Facebook, before Instagram, brands were built just from humans telling humans. And then, right? Like that was it. Yeah. I mean, there's billboards and there's commercials, but it's really about like time and care around creating an experience that people love. And so that was the thesis, is like, if we could get women to feel something and then tell everyone, it's movement. And it starts with 5, moves to 10, moves to 50, 100. And all of a sudden, 3 years in, we had 150,000 brand ambassadors. Mm-hmm. But you just have to start somewhere. It's like a snowball. It's the tiniest little snowball, and you keep pushing it and it gets bigger and bigger. And so tactically, what we did was we started on Instagram. We moved them into actual events, like spent the time hustling and putting events together that cost nothing. Like, join us for a happy hour. We got free wine from Ramona and Wolfer. Yeah. Let's chat. Or, hey, SoulCycle. Like, I think a lot of people that work in your office will like Lively. Can we come? I got free Wolfer wine. Yes. So little things to then take that information and push it back out.
Right. And still no product or anything for anybody to touch.
No, not even a price, not even an image of the bra. Nothing.
Right.
Nothing. Just
right. And so when people would see, like, what are you? What would you say?
We'd say we're a brand inspired by wild hearts and boss brains. And our idea was like, if women could understand that their vulnerability is actually power and passion, put that with business, and
right,
something pretty awesome can happen.
Right. So you have, what'd you say, 130,000 emails before it even launched. And then so it launches, and then what happens?
And then it's launch day. We all have like our cute outfits on, and we immediately have to take them off and put sneakers on and run to the warehouse, because we have more orders than the B2B operation that I made B2C could handle. Wow. And we were sold out in 2 weeks. We shipped to every state in 45 days with no paid media, just PR and hustle.
Wow. That's a great story. Brand, and like community and what you're going to do for it. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So then that's this journey. And then at this point, like, when are you hiring like real people and like,
yeah. So in
executive
April,
office and stuff.
So in April of 16, there was probably 4 of us when we launched, including myself and then maybe an intern or 2. At that point, after the credit cards start chinging, the investors start calling. And so that summer, I was pregnant with my son and raising our official round of capital. And so with that, I had VCs flying in. I pitched one of my investors in the basement of his beach house. We shook on a deal in Starbucks. But the point is I made sure to surround myself with the right people. I didn't say yes to a lot of people, and I didn't say yes to a lot of money, which I could have. I said yes to the people that made me comfortable, and that I could trust. And frankly, I never even had a C-suite, when I sold the company. I just kept hiring people that believed. And I had my VP of finance and operations, who's now chief operating officer and on the board of Lively. But when we sold, it was me, a VP, and the rest of the Lively team.
And so when did you sell? Talk about that, because not many women get to have that experience, which is exciting,
Yeah. So, I quit my job August 3rd of 2015. We sold the company August 1st of 2019.
Oh, wow. 4 years. That is a very short period of time and turnaround.
Yeah. Yeah. So, less than 4 years after selling a product, basically 3 years after we launched. And I wasn't ready to sell, but, a strategic came to me with an offer that was really strong. And frankly, I just wanted Lively to be able to live on after me. And,
Right.
I have 2 kids and a husband, and not only was it good for my family, but it was going to be good for the brand too.
And how do you feel like when you do that? Like, do you feel like, was there a time where you're like, I really need to get somebody else in here to make it grow? Did you ever doubt yourself like that? Or,
I mean, you doubt yourself like twice a week.
well, yeah, I mean,
Maybe
all day
sometimes a
long,
day.
really. But I'm saying,
Yeah.
when it's like starting to grow, like I always get so curious about like, starting a company and building it to a certain thing, but then how is it then like you can still run that company having thousands of employees? You know what I mean? Like who does that? Who scales somebody up so quickly that it's,
Yeah, yeah. By the time we sold Lively, we had, built obviously a phenomenal e-com business, but we had 2 stores at the time. Now we have 4, about to open our 5th. But what I saw is I always held my levers, right? Because I came from big companies that struggled to comp. Not struggled, but like if you were doing well, you got like an 8 to 10% comp, right? Like you weren't doing startup comps of 300%.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I'm like, it's only going to get harder. The bigger the company gets, the harder it is to grow. And so hold on to international, Michelle. Hold on to all these distribution channels. You're going to need them later. And so when I got the offer, in my mind, I was like, oh my God, Lively will be able to launch in Target now. Like we don't have the infrastructure to do that.
Yeah.
We could barely do Nordstrom and open a store. And so for me, it's like, oh my God, I'll be able to breathe. And more importantly, when you're a CEO and you hire people, you work for your team because your job is to make sure they have a job. And so for me, it's like, I don't have to look at cash every Friday now and make sure that we have enough runway to keep all these people. Like, we got a big sister.
Yeah. And so you stayed on through this whole transition, right? And then now you're launching something else though, right? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So, we sold Lively in 19. I stayed on for 3 years post. And that was just purely out of, I wanted to be there. It wasn't one of those things where I was tied. It was that, I wasn't ready to leave. And for the first time, I needed Lively more than Lively needed me, frankly. I didn't know what was going to be next for me. And I think what I realized over those 3 years is I love to build, I love to create. And in my mind, the things that don't exist but do for me is where I light up, right? And so if I can create something that is a tweak on a giant market that is dominated by men and now come into the space and show women that we can have a place here and create jobs for those women as well, like I live for that. And so I see that in wellness. I see that in Web3. And so this time I'm not just launching one, I'm launching a few.
Amazing. I mean, why just one,
Yeah.
Sell in 2 years, whatever.
And you do a lot of the same actions, but I think like where I get really excited is spaces that are very large and dusty, right? Like bras was a space that was $13 billion in the United States, dominated by men. Women didn't like it. And it was for women. Like we can fix that. And so like, what are those other spaces? Like that's where Michelle comes in.
Yeah. I love that. No, it's so true. Yeah. It's like, when Lola and stuff were coming with tampons, like, why did we let them like make tampons for us? What?
Gross.
What are you thinking?
Also, Lola's tampons are so much better.
I know. It's so
August.
crazy.
You think about like Lola, August, Raelle. Like who even buys Tampax anymore?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So all of these things, solving problems for ourselves, which, so a lot of us didn't really realize that they were problems because we were like, okay, this is just how they are,
Right.
It's like,
And
but they're problems.
and they're not inventions. They're just tweaks to make them for women, right?
Exactly.
Like Lively
Exactly.
bras, like it drove me crazy that to adjust your bra strap, the adjuster was in the back.
Yeah.
Well, like, so you would just sit there all day with this strap falling because you don't have time to go to the bathroom. Take your bra off, adjust it. The adjuster
Exactly.
should be in the front.
Exactly. Makes sense. Yeah, there's so many different things. Obviously you went through one, your first thing with entrepreneurship, and then, so what are the things that you did wrong in the first round that you're like, I will never do that again? So people listening here can really learn.
Yeah. Number one is I started building the Lively team as a family, not a sports team. And there's a big difference, right? Because as women, we're very nurturing and loving and caring. And with that, like you don't fire your family members, right? But a sports team still loves each other, respects each other, works hard together. You got to get the ball down the field though. And
Yeah.
so you realize when it's time to bench someone, you realize when it's time to change positions. You are the coach and you got to get the ball down the field.
Yeah. Amazing. That's a really great reference.
Yeah,
But it's also, it's such a, like, one of the reasons why I started not only the Justice Department, but what started this podcast is because all of these terms, right, are so male oriented. And I was on a call, and I'm super experienced, been around forever. And this private equity company asked me to be on a call because they were thinking about investing in a publishing company. And the guy kept talking about dry powder. And I was like, what the fuck is dry powder? And so thankfully it was like a Zoom. It was even before COVID, by the way, but it was in Nashville, and there were no tickets because all the stuff was going on. So we were all on the call, and so I could look up dry powder, and I was like, wait, extra money? Like, why the fuck do you have to call it dry powder? And, and my job between Jay-Z and Rock Nation and Superfly and Justice Department, I work at Superfly, and they use all these sports references like skate to the puck. And I was like, what does that mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It means go get it. Like, don't wait for it to come to you. But, building it like a sports team, it makes sense. It's like you building it like, the team that like you would put together in any kind of situation to get it like,
yes.
So I like that sports reference.
So that would be number one, is like, I was afraid to fire people. And I would say that the first, couple people that I had to let go in the end came back and thanked me, whether it took a year and a half or 6 months, they were like, you were right. Like, I am happier doing something else. Cause that was like, your best people love what they're doing and love what they stand for. I would say the second thing is like, I suck at negotiating for myself. So good at negotiating for the company. Anytime someone's like, so what do you want to make? Or what do you want? Oh, whatever you think is fair. No, like, say what you want.
Yeah.
Still suck at it. But I constantly like call people. I'm like, all right, help me. Like, I need to negotiate. Help me decide what I want so I can just say it. Write it down, say it to yourself a bunch of times in the mirror, ask for it. I would say the other thing is, do think about hiring for the future. I didn't have a C-suite when I sold the company. I should have, at that point. And I think as founders, as entrepreneurs, we want to do it all. The greatest advice I actually got was from Tony Robbins. He once said to me, Michelle, you're not owning your company, you're operating it. And he's like, and you need to own it. And when you're owning it, you've delegated, you've let other people like sink or swim, but now you can see ahead. And it changed everything.
No, it's so true. You can't micromanage all the things. You have to understand what you're good at and what you're not good at. You cannot be everything. And what I keep saying is like, women who start companies and they are comfortable with branding and social media. So they start off with that, but then, and it's great in your situation, but you also had a background in like building brands with an investor who had the product. But unless you have the paperwork, the legal and the financial done, you have no foundation on which to build. Right. And it might not be the sexiest part, but it's the most important part. And it is the part when investors come, they're going to look into. That's all they care about.
Yes.
You know,
Do you have a trademark? Do you have articles of incorporation? Are you legit?
How did you incorporate? Do you have audited financials?
Yeah.
Are you like,
Do you file your taxes?
Do you have money in the bank? All of those things, like I do paperwork when it comes to all of these vendor agreements and, these things are the things that matter. These are the structure things that it will fall apart. It's like a house of cards otherwise,
Yes. I mean, one thing I think that in retrospect that I did that was smart was I tracked every single dollar in QuickBooks Intuit from day one. Like a coffee at Starbucks as a meeting, like everything was tracked and accounted for. So every Friday I would grab a coffee and I would sit in front of QuickBooks Intuit because I didn't have an accountant, even though I was like funded. I wanted to be scrappy and I wanted to understand it. And so I would do the books. And when you know your financials, like you feel you're badass.
Yeah. But then I think the key is knowing that you got to pass that off because that's not the best use of your time. Knowing just enough about all of the different things so you can make decisions. Because back to your second one, negotiating as a lawyer by trade and a very skilled negotiator, my top 3 tips for negotiating are hire somebody to negotiate for you.
Yeah.
Right? Always.
Yeah.
Don't negotiate your own salary. Do not negotiate anything like that you do not know how to do. It's no different than I was talking to a doctor as a client of mine. I said, it's no different than like if I went to a doctor and go, okay, tell me the top 3 things I need to do to give myself a boob job. You would never do that. You would never go to give me the top 3 tips to litigate for myself. There are skilled negotiators. There are people who negotiate. And so, and sometimes you don't have the ability to have somebody else negotiate for you when you're talking to investors, et cetera, but you can talk to somebody that can Cyrano de Bergerac your emails, which I do all the time.
I'm like, Jennifer, I need you to negotiate for me.
That's what I do.
I'm so bad at it. I call my lawyer, like literally texted him last night. I was like, thinking about something. I need your help. Can we talk tomorrow? And he's like, yes, of course.
That's what we do though. That's what, we help people figure out the right wording and the pace and the cadence and like what you should say, what you should give up, what you shouldn't give up, because it's like a chess game, right? It is. Like I know how to grab the king. I've done it a million times, so you have to give those experiences to the people who know how to do it,
Totally.
Yeah. So those are all great tips. Thank you so much for all of that. And I know that we can't keep you forever because now you're running 2 different companies plus, 2 small kids. But there's one question I ask every single person that's on here. And what is the worst advice you've ever received?
Oh, the worst advice I've ever received. This is a good one. To raise more money.
There you go. I love that. No, it's true. I actually said that this morning to somebody. I was like, I feel like one of the things that a woman in VC is that women don't ask for enough. They're like, I only need 500. I could get by. And it was like, then raise 1.5.
Exactly.
Why?
Exactly.
Don't get by with what you think you need being scrappy. Like have a big vision, like raise that money.
Exactly. So I literally just said this with my team on a topic we're writing about, which is, as women, we take what we need versus what we will need. Like, don't ask for what you need now, ask for what you're going to need for that $1 billion company, that $1 million company, whatever it is that you see the future being.
Right. Well, take that minute though, and tell us about like the podcast and everything that you're doing in that so people can understand where to follow you on.
Yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram at _Michelle Grant, and I'll be launching a podcast called Web3 with MCG, and stay tuned for some new brands and communities to be coming your way soon in the wellness and other female category spaces. So
when is the podcast launching?
That will be launching in November.
Amazing.
Yes.
That's awesome. Why the Web3 space?
Well, you know what? I think that is going to be the future of where brands are built and shared and marketed. And it's where women need to get informed and comfortable, because it's going to be the next genre of entrepreneurs, millionaires, and billionaires.
I love it. Can't wait to be there.
You're there.
Thank you so much for everything. Everyone listening, thank you for listening to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. Until next time, I'm Jennifer Justice.